I don't deserve what I make. And that just, that grinds my gears because you can make upwards of $50,000 to $100,000 per transaction and even more than that. And as long as you are providing the service that commands that commission, then you deserve that. But if you don't know your value, you're never going to make that type of money.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another session of Build Your Business with Brittany. I'm Brittany, a real estate agent, coach, and investor, and every Thursday at 2 p.m. we gather to share tips, strategies, and insights to help you grow your business to the next level. Whether you're a brand new agent or a seasoned pro, there's something in these trainings for you. Now let's jump into this week's topic.
What I want to talk to you about today is knowing your value. Don't go into a listing appointment already thinking that you're going to lower your compensation. Don't do that. Go in thinking, I'm going to charge the highest amount because I am worth it. You need to know your value. You need to know your worth. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm Brittany Handura, real estate agent, coach, and investor, and I am going to help you just like we help you every single week. We're going to talk about stop discounting your commission, know your value. I'm here to make real estate easy for you. So let's jump in. All right. So here's what I want you to take away from today. Number one, I want you to know your role. What do you do as an agent day to day? Again, I have so many people asking me these questions of like, what do I do as a real estate agent? A lot of new agents just really don't know what they do on a day-to-day basis. And so I want to talk to us today and really define that. What do you do as an agent? What's your role? Because more and more, you're going to have to prove that to your clients. And so I want to make sure that you see that, you know that, you understand what your role is day to day as an agent. Your number two takeaway, know your value. What is the value to a consumer using an agent? Let me tell you, AI is taking over. And if we are not on that train, we're going to get left behind. I don't want that for you, especially as new agents coming into this. I want you to know how to get on the forefront of that instead of trying to race to catch up. I want you to understand what it is to be able to jump on this AI revolution, because otherwise you're going to be left in the dust. So the reason I say that is because already I just went into Glide the other day, and I use Glide for a lot of my transactions. I actually just started using Glide because it's really smooth and easy. You just glide right on through. And this takes the place of DocuSign or Zip forms. It just makes it very easy for the consumer, really easy for you to fill everything out. But when I went in there, I was really just trying to check and see, like, how would somebody fill out an RPA on here? Because like I said, I just started using it. I haven't even filled out an RPA on there. And when I went on, I was realizing there is a consumer facing part of it that actually will say it walks you through. So just like if you've used Glide as a workflow for an Avid, which I always recommend doing because it makes it so much smoother and easier. It kind of asks you questions along the way. And at the end, you have this printout of a PDF that you didn't actually have to fill out. It fills it out for you. And it does exactly that for an RPA, but it does it so that a consumer could do it directly. So I say this to say the real estate agent's job of filling out contracts is going away. That is going away. I really do think that a large portion of our job will have very little to do with contracts. Already, it has very little to do with contracts because we have our TCs, we have people we outsource for this, we have our compliance departments, we have all of that kind of thing that makes it so that our main job, our main focus is not contracts. Do we have to know them? Absolutely. Do we need to know what it means to be able to explain to our clients? Yes. But that's not where your value comes from. So as you see some of these things kind of taking over, this AI taking over in those ways, don't worry, don't be scared, because what you need to understand is that your value as an agent goes way beyond contracts. It goes to understanding the whole nature of a real estate transaction from start to finish. And so I want to make sure that you understand what your value is so that you can communicate that to a consumer. Number three, professional knowledge. What are the valuable pieces of information you need to bring to your clients? There are a lot of things that you need to know that maybe your clients don't need to know, but you need to know on their behalf. Maybe there are some things that you need to understand because they paint a full picture of the market. And really, your clients are never going to know this. However, you need to make sure that you know. And I feel like when I was a brand new agent, there were a lot of things that you don't know what you don't know. And one of the things was, what is the important information that I need to keep track of on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis? And so that's what I want to talk to you about today. So these are going to be your takeaways from today's training. I want you to make sure you know your role, know your value, and understand some of that professional knowledge. So you ready to jump in? Let's go. First and foremost, you are a fiduciary. But what is a fiduciary? I know most of us learn this in our real estate school, our real estate training, but what does it mean in real life? Well, technically, fiduciary duties are legal obligations that require an individual or entity to act in the best interest of another party. In the best interest of another party. So in real estate, agents have a fiduciary duty to their clients, which means that they must act in the best interest of their clients and not their own interests. So how does this look in the real world? I used to think that it meant, because I got into this as an investor. So I used to think that this meant, oh, well, if I want to buy a property that my client also wants to put an offer on, I need to let them know that, or I need to step aside or whatever. And yes, that is part of what being a fiduciary is. But there are a lot more commonplace things that happen beyond we both want to put the offer on the same house, because that doesn't happen very often. In fact, that's never happened to me yet. But what is more common is maybe you need to request, maybe you go in, you put an offer on a house for $1 million. You're on behalf of your client. You go in and do an inspection and find, yikes, there is a lot that needs to be done to this house, at least over $100,000. Well, you can't request $100,000 in closing costs in a credit because there aren't going to be $100,000 in closing costs, hopefully. And you can't request that in a credit beyond whatever the closing costs are going to be. The lenders won't allow it. And so the best option is going to be, it's going to be a price reduction. And a price reduction is going to make it so that you make less money on the commission, because of course your commission typically is based on a percentage of the closing price. And so if you say, we need to reduce this by $100,000, that's $2,500 to $3,000 on average out of your pocket. But that is what a fiduciary does. You are acting in the best interest of your clients. So as long as you have that in your mindset, as this is what you do, this is what it is to be a real estate agent, to be a fiduciary, then you're going to act on the up and up most of the time. There are some times that it's going to be questionable and you're going to have to go and talk to your broker or your leadership, but most of the time it's going to be pretty clear and easy to see, what does it mean to be a fiduciary? And that's what you need to do. So when we talk about these types of transactions and what is the value that you bring, one of the values that you bring is that you are going to put their interests first. Meaning, another very common situation is, if you are representing the buyer and the seller wants to get more money, you're not representing the seller, you're representing the buyer. And it's your job to put your buyer's interests first. So you're not trying to say, well, it is fair that the seller is asking this. Now, our job is to get the deal closed, and we want to make sure that we're doing that, but we want to do it in the best interest of our clients. If something comes up and we know that our clients only have an extra $10,000 and we know that it's going to be $15,000, we need to disclose that. Now, if they decide to still go through with it, that's fine. But this is what it means to act in the best interest of our clients. So this is what being a fiduciary is. This is part of understanding your value and what you bring. Now let's switch gears to the 6 core competencies. If you go to any kind of KW event, Mega Mind, or what is it called? Mega Camp, family reunion, anything like that, they're going to talk about the 6 core competencies. And basically, this is what Gary Keller talks about. Sorry, I'm getting sick or have allergies or something, and my brain is a little foggy. So hang with me. You'll get the idea as we go. The 6 core competencies are what an agent does on a daily basis. This is when you talk about a job description for a real estate agent, here it is. So what I want you to do is I want you to give yourself a grade for each of these as we go. 1 to 10, you can't use 7. So I want you to say, okay, how well do I do this? Grade 1 to 10. And I want you to be totally honest. I'm not going to look at these. Nobody else is going to look at these. It's only for you and your self-improvement. So let's jump into this. What are the 6 core competencies? And then I want you to write this down and put a grade next to each one. 1 through 10, you can't use 7. Number 1, lead generate. How well do you do lead generating? Now, of course, this is number 1 for a reason. This is your number 1 job, lead generation. So even if you're in the midst of a transaction, even if you're in the midst of 10 transactions, what are you doing to get the 11th transaction? What are you doing to get the next transaction? You should always be lead generating. And we talk about lead generating a lot because this is your number 1 job. So if you hang with me for long enough, we're going to be talking about lead generation and how to do it and what are the best things to do and tips and tricks and ideas for lead generation, because this is so important, because this is your main job. So lead generation, how well do you do it? And this doesn't have to be cold calls. It doesn't have to be open houses. This could be however you do most of your lead generation. So if it's with SOI, maybe you're doing events, maybe you're doing coffee dates, maybe you're doing get-togethers, maybe you are hosting events. Whatever you do, how well do you do it? Give yourself a grade. Number 2, present to buyers and sellers and get agreements. Now, this is another thing that we talk about, especially when we talk about our goal setting. We talk about the important numbers to track are not just the conversations you have, which a lot of people are going to say, track those conversations, number those conversations. How many conversations are you getting to get to an agreement? But the real thing that you need to be tracking is how many agreements are you getting? How many appointments are you getting? So what generally we say is you should be aiming for 1 appointment a week, because especially for new agents, that is usually going to meet and or exceed your goals. So 1 appointment a week is going to usually get you, depending on your price point, it's usually going to get you over $100,000. It's usually going to get you 8 to 12 to maybe more, depending on your price point, closings. That's what we're here for, are the closings. So when you grade yourself on presenting to buyers and sellers, not only do I want you to think about how well you present, the quality of your presentation, I also want you to think about the quantity of your presentation. Because if you do a superb buyer or seller presentation, but you do 2 a year, it's not going to matter how good you are. You need to do more. It is about the numbers. It's all a numbers game. The more you do, the more closings you're going to have. And even if you're not as good at it, if you do more of it, you're going to get better. Once you do more and more and more, practice it, you're going to get better. So even if you don't have an actual buyer or seller presentation set for this week or next week, set a practice one, because the more you do, the better you're going to get. Put a grade for yourself. And what I want you to do is I want you to track these and then see how you do over time. Number 3, show buyers and market sellers. So we're showing our buyers houses and we're marketing to sellers. So whatever that looks like for you, that's part of your lead generation, but this is part of your job, is showing your clients stuff. If you're not doing it, then you're having somebody else do it and you're needing to pay for that. But you're probably also needing to train that if you have a showing assistant or something like that. So it is still your job to show buyers and market to sellers. You're still needing to have those presentations. You're still needing to make sure that you're doing this. So how well do you do this? I will tell you, I've worked with hundreds of agents over the last couple years, and most agents rate themselves highest on this one because they can go and open a door like nobody's business. But it's not just about opening doors, it's about all the rest of this. That is where your value comes from. Because I will also tell you that a lot of people, consumers, mistakenly think a real estate agent's job is to be a door opener. They're a tour guide. That is not our job. That is a small part of our job that can actually be easily farmed out. We can hire a showing assistant. We can do things so that we don't have to be the ones doing that. So this is the tiniest little bit of our job. But a lot of people say, I am great at that, which is good because you should be great at it, because this is part of how you are gaining clients to be forever clients, your lifelong clients, and those people who will give you referrals, because you're building that rapport. So it is an important piece of your job, but don't think because that you're good at that one thing that you get a pass on all the rest. No, no, no. We need to be improving our skills in all of these areas. Write and negotiate contracts. So I love that write and negotiate are combined in this, because writing the contracts, as we have been talking about, is soon to be a thing of the past. I really think that writing the contracts is going to be, again, the tiniest little piece of our job, if not gone completely because of AI. It's the negotiating where you shine. This is where you're going to come in and you're going to really take a level up above the competition, above the rest. Because if you're able to go in and negotiate on behalf of your client, on your client's best interest, you're going to be that fiduciary. You are going to make your value known. You're going to show your value, because if you can save your clients $10,000, $20,000, they're going to happily pay you your percentage of whatever you're getting. So you need to make sure that you're an expert at the negotiation. And again, we talk about that during our trainings. So come and join me every Tuesday at 9:30. We talk about all of these topics. I am going to teach you and dig deep on all of these. Writing and negotiating contracts is one of those that we do talk about pretty regularly, at least once a month. We talk about writing and negotiating contracts, but the negotiating, part of the negotiating is how you write the contract. And we talked about that last week, that a lot of times when the way that you write the contract speaks to the type, it tells a story, I should say. We talked about this because basically if you're saying, my client is only going to give 1% of an earnest money deposit, the initial deposit. They're only going to do 1%. Well, all of a sudden that triggers to the listing agent, maybe they don't have enough money for this whole transaction. And if they have another person who's going to do 3%, does it matter? Ultimately, no. What matters is the down payment. What matters is the purchase price. But in writing your contracts, you're telling a story. So you have to get really good at knowing what story is it that you're telling. So even though the actual writing of the contract is not what is the most important, understanding the contracts and knowing the story that it tells is part of that negotiation. And then, of course, building that rapport and negotiating with the other side is a huge part of your role. So how do you score on that one? 1 to 10, you can't use 7. Coordinate contract to close. Now, a lot of times once we get under contract, you'll see a lot of things are out of your hands. Now it moves on to escrow, it moves on to the lender, it moves on to title, your TC is doing a lot of stuff, but you're still needing to be there as the face to your client. You're still kind of the liaison between all of these different people. And even though escrow is contacting your clients directly, or, things are happening that you might not even realize are already happening, It's still your job to coordinate all of that. It's your job to make sure certain things are happening on time. And so you still need to be on top of it. Just because you have a TC, a transaction coordinator, doesn't mean you can throw up your hands and say, great, my job here is done. No, your job has only just begun once you've gotten under contract, because there's still another set of negotiating that you can do, sometimes two, because if you do a request for repair negotiation, then you do a negotiation potentially on the appraisal. That's two times that you're going to have to negotiate after the initial negotiation. So there's a lot to do during a transaction. How are you on coordinating that? What's your score? And then number 6, manage your money. You are running a business. You're running a small business. So how are you on figuring out how to manage your money and make sure that you have enough money to continue marketing? Make sure that you have enough money to continue paying your people, like your transaction coordinators. How are you managing your money? And a lot of times people think that they're good at this. And then when we really dig into it, they're really not. If you don't know how much money you need for the year, if you haven't budgeted it out, if you don't know how much you need for your business expenses, if you don't know how much you need for your future growth, then you're not managing your money as well as you could. Not to say you're not managing it well, but a lot of times people think, oh, well, I put everything on a credit card and as soon as I get paid, I pay that credit card off. That is not managing your money. Do you have a budget? Do you have a P&L, a profit and loss statement? Do you have an understanding of the next 6 months of your business? That is managing your money. So how do you do on that? 1 to 10, you can't use 7. All right, let's move on. What is the next thing we're going to talk about? We are jumping in now to your value. So what is the value of using an agent over AI, over all of these things that are going to be competing for your business? What is the value of using an agent? Now, notice as we go through, I'm not talking about how do you stand out among other agents. Right now, I'm talking about how do you stand out among AI? How do you stand out against automation? This is what's coming our direction. You need to be ready for it. Now, you notice as I talk, I'm not scared. I'm not worried about this. I'm not freaking out. I think, yes, it's coming. I think we can use this to enhance our business and grow our business exponentially. And yes, it's going to take some business away, but I don't think it's going to take it all away. And I'm really confident in that. So let's jump into what is the value of using an agent.
Okay, before we jump to the next topic, I want to remind you that if you're looking for even more real estate resources like a social media content calendar or an open house roadmap, visit the link in the description below because I have just that for you. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you get more videos just like this as soon as they come out. Now let's keep going with today's training.
Number 1, it's your market understanding. Agents dive deep into the local markets every day. They can help with pricing and writing offers, which of course in turn saves your clients money. Now think about when your client goes to sell a home, a lot of times they do a deep dive into all things, they do a lot of market research. So they do a deep dive into mortgage rates. They do a deep dive into price per square foot. They do a deep dive into actually a lot of things that don't have a huge impact on the day to day. But they're hyper focused on what they need to do when they're ready to buy or sell a house. And that is generally once every 7 to 10 years. And that number might actually start going up if interest rates don't start coming down. People are going to stay where they are longer. But guess what? We're not worried about that either because there's always the 4 Ds: death, divorce, diamonds, and diapers. People are always dying. Ooh. People are always getting divorced, unfortunately. People are always getting engaged and starting their marriages, and people are always having babies. In every economy, these things are happening. And so if you go after who is actually buying, you're not going to have to worry about what the external market is doing as far as the economy and all of that kind of thing. You just focus on who needs your help and provide the best value. I digress. Let's get back on track. So, even if your client is doing a deep dive once every 7 to 10 years, they might have a really good understanding of the houses that they want, but they don't have a good understanding as a market of as a whole. They don't necessarily have a good understanding of the historical, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Whatever, the averages that have gone on that tell the story of what's to come. What do we see in the future? What do we know of it's going to start happening? Or what has happened that has led us to this? Or where do we think a good price point for this house would be? They don't see that. You, as an agent, study this day in and day out. And don't worry, I'm going to tell you what you should be looking at because this is part of knowing your role. Agents don't even know what they should be looking at. What is this market knowledge that they should know? And so I'm going to show you that. I'm going to tell you that. But you have to have a good idea of the market understanding because that's part of your value. Negotiating. We already talked about this. The client doesn't have to negotiate on their own behalf. Professional relationships go a long way. Let me tell you, if I was a listing agent and I had two identical offers, one was from an agent that I knew, one was from an agent that I didn't know, I'm going to go with the agent that I know every day of the week because I know that agent closes. I know that that agent has been around for however long in the industry. I know that if that agent doesn't close, I can go to whoever they know and say, hey, what's up? What's going on with this? What's happening with this? You can't do that for somebody that you don't know. For an agent that you don't know coming into this, you have no idea what their history is like. You have no idea if they can close a transaction. You don't know, and you're just relying on the fact that they wrote you an offer and they have a DRE number. We need to know a little bit more than that. So professional relationships in our business go a long way. Now, I will say, if somebody comes to me with identical offers, one from an agent I don't know, and one from that's self-represented that's just doing this on Glide, they pulled it up and are doing it on Glide, I'm going to go with the one agent that I don't know every day of the week. And the reason for that is because I want to make sure that I'm working with somebody who has a proven track record. Somebody who's representing themselves does not have a proven track record. In fact, they probably don't know what they're doing. They just are trying to save a buck. And the downfall of that is that that listing agent is going to see that and say, a real estate transaction has a lot more moving pieces than just writing up an RPA, than just doing what Glide can do. It is a lot more complicated than that, which is why we have real estate agents, which is why this market is booming, which is why we know the market booming, by the way, as in real estate agents coming in. We have tons of real estate agents. And the reason for that is because people know it is complicated. It's a complicated transaction. We need professionals to walk us through this. And so the negotiating is done by people who do it every day and should be done by people who do it every day, not from somebody who's representing themselves because they're trying to save a buck, thinking all real estate agents do is take people's money. That is not the case. And we need to fight against the idea that a real estate agent is just like a used car salesman. Absolutely not. First of all, we're selling a better product. And so we are selling a better product than a used car. And we're selling an asset, something that is going to be able to be passed down generation to generation if you wanted to. You cannot do that with a used car. But the difference is that we're here to help them through that entire transaction, through the whole process. And that whole process can take months. I know an agent who's been going through a transaction that has lasted 6 months because they're working with their clients and they're working with the other side to make sure that all kinds of stuff happens because they're being a good fiduciary. Tell me what kind of used car salesman does that? None. Because that's it, it's fundamentally completely different. But so often the consumers have this idea in their head that real estate agents are just in it for the money. Please, that is not the case. I've worked with hundreds of agents and I know that that is not the case. In fact, I struggle to even think of a single agent that that was the case for. Now, of course, we're getting into this and we want to make money, but that's not the sole reason. And 99% of agents are not out there to swindle their way into making money. They're there because, sure, it's lucrative, but also they are providing value. They're providing value that people desperately need in a situation like this. So I say that because sometimes that kind of thinking can creep into even real estate agents. It can creep into people thinking, well, I don't want to be like those agents. I don't want to be like a normal real estate agent. I want you to elevate yourself beyond that. I don't want you to think of yourself as or our industry as like sleazy agents. No, I want you to be proud of being a real estate agent. We are providing a valuable service. And that's part of understanding your value is understanding that yes, we can get paid a lot of money. And yes, we provide value that commands that type of money. So let's keep going. Professional knowledge. Your expertise ensures a smoother process with less hiccups than someone navigating this on their own. So remember, this is what we just talked about, is that your expertise provides a smoother process with something that is riddled with hiccups. I always give people the analogy or metaphor, what is it? I don't know, you'll get the idea, the story of flying on a plane. So I'm talking to my clients and I say, hey, where is your favorite place to go? Let's just say Cancun. I'm going to Cancun in a couple weeks. So excited. All right, let's talk about you're going to Cancun and you're getting ready to take off, and taking off, you have a pilot who you trust, but you know what? There's going to be turbulence. And I'm your pilot in this situation. And when we hit turbulence, I'm going to let you know, hey, there's a little turbulence up ahead. It's to be expected. We're not worried about it. But I am also going to let you know when it's time to sit down and buckle your seatbelt. Because sometimes we're going to run into these situations where we need to buckle our seatbelt and we need to charge forward. And then you're going to land and you're going to be on your vacation in paradise and you're going to love it and be on the white sandy beaches and the blue waters. And you're not even going to be thinking about that flight that had a little bit of turbulence. You're not even going to remember it. What you're going to remember is your dream vacation. That's what you're going to remember. And that's my goal, is that you don't even remember the hiccups that came up during this transaction. So we can say that, but when you are working with somebody who's representing yourself, these hiccups are a lot more often because they're not working with a professional who can tell them, here's what to expect. Here's what's coming next. This is normal. Don't worry. They're just working on their own emotions and saying, I want this house and I thought it would be easier on my own. It's not. And this is coming. I do believe we're going to see more and more people representing themselves and not wanting to work with an agent because they think they can do it themselves. Now, I will also say, just as a caveat here, is that we have industries that have been disrupted by AI or automation or things that come in. And I always use the example of TurboTax. TurboTax is something that a lot of people use. A lot of people use it. I mean, lots of people use TurboTax to do their taxes. And yet we still have CPAs, we still have accountants, we still have people who are going to need to help us out. Because the reality is not every single person has easy taxes. In fact, a lot of people have much more difficult taxes. And a lot of people, especially who have more sophisticated finances, don't see the value in doing it themselves. They see the value in paying somebody else to do it. And so my argument to people who say the industry is changing and I'm really nervous because, we've seen this coming, we've seen it before in other industries. This is my argument to them, is that we might lose some people, but I think the people who we're going to lose, I think the transactions that we're going to lose are going to be the lower end of our marketplaces. I think it's going to be the $200,000 and $300,000. Now, depending on what your lower end is, whatever that lower end is, but I think it's going to be the lower end of the market. I think the higher end is still going to value a real estate agent. They're still going to value the knowledge and the professionalism that you bring, and also the negotiating, because they understand, just like with taxes, that if their taxes are a little more complicated, a professional who does this every day is going to save them much more money than if they try and do it on their own just to save a buck. It's going to be the same thing in real estate. A real estate agent is going to save them much more money than they cost them. So, as much as we need consumers to understand this, you as an agent first need to understand this. You need to understand your value. All right, now let's talk about understanding market trends. So, there are a few key words that we need to think about, averages and things like that, that we need to talk about, that you need to understand. So, what I want you to do is I want you to write these down. And again, give yourself a grade 1 to 10 and know, how are you on this? Can't use 7. And anything that's 6 or below, I want you to focus on this and I want you to study up on it and learn what it is and how to figure this out. Because it's not difficult. It probably is just that you haven't been introduced to it, which is okay. We just want to make sure that you're introduced to it and that you study up on it. Because these are much easier to grasp and to master than what we were talking about with the 6 core competencies. The 6 core competencies are habits that you have to put in place. Lead generation, you have to be doing that every single day. Showing buyers, understanding your, or being able to present and doing our appointments, getting agreements. All of these are things that you have to do every day to make sure that your business is top notch. Understanding market trends is something you have to learn once and then execute it so that you are getting these reports and knowing how to read them. So let's talk about these are the key things that I would say as a real estate agent you need to have a good understanding of. Some of them are easy, some of them are a little more tricky. So I'm going to give a brief description of that, but if there's anything, again, when you score yourself at 6 or below, look into it. Most of the time it's a quick Google search, but sometimes you need a video to dive deeper. Just take it, dive deeper into it, learn it on your MLS, go into this and really start to study this. But you'll ace this in no time. So here are the market trends that you need to understand. Average home price. Now, of course, when you talk about the average home prices, if you hear it across in any kind of headline, you hear average home prices, you're going to hear the average home price across the US is like something like, I don't know, 300,000 to 400,000, which is laughable in my area because literally you cannot get a 1-bedroom condo for 300,000. There is nothing. And I know a lot of you are in California, and so you understand that. But that's why we need to understand, we don't need just the average home price for the nation. We need the average home price in our communities, because you need to be the economist of choice for your community. People need to go to you to know that you are a local expert. That's part of your value. So you need to understand the average home price in your community. So if you have a farm area where you are marketing to these people, you need to know what's the average home price in that community, maybe in your city, maybe in your county. And I'm going to show you on the MLS, you can pull this up. It's really easy to find the average home prices in these areas. And with that, it just gives you a better understanding because you can see the trends. Days on market. Now, here's the thing. Days on market tells a story. Back in 2020, 2021, 2022, average days on market was like two days on market. Well, now average days on market is going up. In my area, average days on market tends to be between 10 and 20 days on market. So what that tells me is that I know days on market has gone up, but it still is not so high that if I see something that has been on the market for 90 days, that tells me something. That tells me this is way higher than the average. And so what's wrong with it? Why is it sitting? Maybe it's priced too high. I'd say on average, 95% of the time, it's priced too high. But this is what we know. These trends tell us a story. And so days on market, if it's low days on market, that means things are getting picked up really quickly. If it's higher days on market, it means things are starting to sit. It means probably home prices, the average home prices are coming down a little bit. Now, what we are seeing in our area is that the days on market are going up, but the average home prices actually haven't gone down too much. They've gone down a tiny bit, but it's really because people needed to what's the word I'm looking for? Like balance it out, because it was just increasing for a couple of years, and now it's starting to taper off. And so agents are figuring that out. And so the home prices, while they're not continuing to increase, they're not going down. They're really leveling out. But this, again, it all tells a story. The days on market tells part of that story, is that it used to be that you could list it at any amount and it's going to fly off the market, or yeah, it's going to fly out. But now you have to price it right, maybe a little bit lower, and then you can have lower days on market. Then things will go pretty quickly still. But you also need to understand that the average days on market in general are up. Now, I will say, if you go to other markets like super luxury markets, a lot of times the super luxury markets have a very high days on market because they have a much narrower buying pool. They have a lot less buyers because there are a lot less buyers who can afford 5, 10, $15 million homes. But there are many more buyers who can afford a $7, $8, $900,000 home, even $1 million home, up to $2 million. That's a bigger buying pool. And if you go into the lower price markets where the average home price is 500,000, you have a much bigger buying pool. So these are all things that you have to know for your own market. Is it a buyer's market versus a seller's market? And a lot of these same things tell us the story. So if we say a buyer's market, remember, it's all about supply and demand. So when you have high inventory and low demand, that's going to be a strong buyer's market. So you don't have as many buyers, but you have a lot of sellers. So the buyers are the ones who are in charge. The buyers are the one who dictate. Now, what we've had in the recent long history is a seller's market, a strong seller's market, where there's low inventory, but high demand. And back in 2021, 22, there was super high demand, buyer demand, and very low inventory. And so that's why we had our prices shooting up. Well, now we have less demand, but even less inventory, which is why home prices are staying still, if not continuing to go up a little bit. We don't know what's to come yet, because with this presidential election, there's all kinds of craziness of what can come. And if you've noticed, since this presidential election has been announced, mortgage interest rates have only gone up and up and up and up and up. Part of that just recently is a jobs report that was released that said there were lots of jobs available, which is not good for inflation. It's not good for the economy as a whole. We don't want a lot of jobs. Now, of course, as an individual, yeah, you want a job, but when there are more jobs being created than people who want jobs, then that's when we say, okay, well, this is going to hurt the economy in some way. So that I'm not doing a very good job of explaining to you how that works. But the point is, the buyer's market versus the seller's market, it's important for you to understand. But we've been in a strong seller's market for a long time, and it looks like we're going to continue to be, because it does not look like inventory is going up anytime soon. Inventory, keep throwing this word around. This is really just how many homes are on the market. How many homes are on the market? Now, typically, low inventory is going to be, you'll hear people say, well, we have 2 months worth of inventory, 6 months worth of inventory, that kind of thing. If we have 2 months worth of inventory, what that means is that if nothing new came to the market, we would only have 2 months worth before everything gets bought up. Now, our inventory has been going up slightly, but when we come to a balanced market is when we have 6 months worth of inventory, and we're not there yet. We're nowhere near that. That's when we usually have a balanced market. So inventory is key for you to take a look at. And again, it just tells the story. Sold to list price ratio. You're going to see this a lot. And basically, this is saying, what was it listed at? So if it was listed at $1 million and it sold for $1.1 million, it's going to say that it was sold for 100 and I can't do the math on that. 150%, no, 110% of its sales price, something like that. If it was listed at $1 million and sold for $900,000, it's going to say that it was sold for the sold to list price ratio is 90%. So that's the amount that that's what you're looking for to say, okay, this is part of the story that it's telling. If this has been listed for 152 days and it was listed at $1 million and it ended up selling for 900,000, that tells us that it was listed too high to begin with, probably, and that it wasn't worth the $1 million to start with. But if we're trying to pull a comp and we're seeing, okay, if our client wants to list at $1 million and their house is comparable to this one, it probably is going to sell for around 900,000. So do they want it to sit, or do we want to list it for 900,000, maybe get it to go a little higher than that, and it'll go much quicker. That's why the sold to list price ratio is important. Now here, I wanted to show you, this is just trends, market trends that I pulled from my MLS. Every MLS has this. I'm not going to show you how to do it. This is for you to go ask your board how to find this. But this is the kind of thing you're looking for so that you can actually see trends. Okay, number of listings. So if you look over here at the number of listings, okay, let me zoom out because I can't see anything. Oh, and apparently I didn't get the number on this side to begin with. Anyway, the idea is not the actual number. The idea is that it's going up. So we see the number of listings in this last year or so. This ended January 2024, so it definitely could be updated. But last year, the number of listings went up, 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 up. So we were at the lowest in December and January of 2023, and then in June it shot up. Now remember, real estate is cyclical. Real estate is what's the word I'm looking for, like it acts with the holidays and stuff, and not just holidays but with the weather. Anyway, you know what I mean. It is based on the climate. I do not know what this word is. Brain fog. Okay, doesn't matter. Real estate goes up and down is what I'm trying to say. So very often you can see that real estate is going to drop and we're going to have a lower number of active listings in November, December, January, and then it's going to continue to go up in June and the summer months. But what we can see here is that these were the summer months, and look how low they were. It really stayed pretty consistently low from August through December. So it dropped a little bit in December, January, and then went up, and then it started exceeding the inventory that we had last year. So that's what that tells us, is that, okay, the number of listings is up from this point last year. That's what we're looking for. Now we're looking at listing prices, and we have the blue line is the active median list price. The green line is the new median list price. So these are things that are 14 days and under, maybe 7 days and under. And then the sold list price is the gray. So what I am always interested in what is sold. So you can see here, the sold list price started out June of 2023, or July, I guess, around less than 700,000. And then it went down in March, April of 2024, and then it started to go a little bit up, but it's pretty much stayed fairly consistent right here. In June, it popped up to be a little bit higher, and we're almost at 900,000. So you can look at the actives, look at the difference with these actives. This is right around stuff was starting to level out, and agents were not getting that picture yet. And so things were selling for much less than what they were listed at. These were listed way too high, and they needed to be sold down here. But here you can see there was a big drop down here. And sometimes that can just be that month there was a foreclosure that happened or there was something that went down and really pulled those numbers down. It was an outlier, whatever. But it's really about seeing the trends. What we're seeing is this time last year, it has gone up. The listing prices have still gone up. Even though they've gone up and down, they've consistently gone slightly up. Absorption rate, this is that inventory. So it's talking about how long is it going to take everything to absorb? And that, again, is going up. So that means this was very low and this was a strong buyer's market and it's going up. So it's starting to be, no, sorry, this was a strong seller's market. It's starting to be more favorable to the buyers. So what does that mean? That means that the buyers can come in and potentially get lower priced homes. They can potentially ask for seller credits. They can potentially ask for things that they would never have been able to get 3 years ago in 2020, 2022, around there. They would have never been able to get seller's credit. In fact, they were saying, please take my firstborn. I want to buy this house so bad. Now we are seeing that sellers are more motivated. And so they are willing to offer seller credits. They're willing to offer these things because now you can see that it's starting to be more of a buyer's market. And then the sold to list price ratio right here is 100%. This is 101%, 99%. So they're all between right around 100% down to 97%. And then some of them are a little bit higher than 101. Now, this also, you have to keep in mind with this is that this depends on what the agents do. So a lot of times if you're trying to sell fast, you're going to list it under market value, knowing it's going to sell for higher. So if you list it under market value, knowing it's going to sell at 101%, you're going to artificially change these numbers, but you're only one agent. And so only if tons of agents are getting the hint and they're doing that this is going to make a big difference. So that's what this is looking at, sold to list price ratio. So it's around 100% and it ends a little bit lower. So again, the story that tells is that if you're trying to list a property that sells really, really quickly, you need to list it even lower than you thought you might need to list it for. It's all about figuring out these market trends. So you can see how you as a real estate agent bring the value there, that somebody who just decided on a whim to sell their own house is not going to have this type of value. They're not going to have this type of information or knowledge. This is the type of knowledge that you bring. And remember, this is the stuff that I'm saying. This is not stuff that you need to share with your clients. This is stuff that you need to know and understand. But if you scored yourself low in any of those areas, when we were talking about the market knowledge that you need to have, any of these, understanding the market trends, these are easy to remedy. If you go on and really figure this out, Google it, understand it, talk to your market center leadership about this stuff, you will be able to master this. The other core competencies, that's what you need to really focus on creating habits with. All right, so let's talk about how to win. What's important now? Number one, score your core competencies. We've been talking about this. Give yourself a grade 1 to 10, can't be 7, and focus on training to improve your skills in that area. So if you know that you say, you know what, lead generation, I can still improve in, which I would say 98% of agents, veteran, brand new, all agents need to improve in this. But if you recognize that in yourself and you say, you know, I could really improve in this area, then anytime you see a training on that, you should go. Now, remember, we need to focus our time and really be intentional with our time and time management, which is why I say, figure out what you need help in and really make sure that you are going to those types of trainings. Otherwise, if you continue to go to trainings and every single training, you're wasting your time when you could be out there lead generating. So don't go to every single training that's offered. If you did that, you would be able to go to trainings 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Don't do that. Figure out what you need extra help and support in and go in on that. And then the things that you're really good with, double down on it and make that part of your value proposition. That is who you are, what you are. That is why you bring value to your clients, whatever it is, if you're an expert negotiator, make sure your clients know that and understand that. All right, number two, practice. Practice the conversations about proving your worth. Practice your value proposition. Practice understanding your listing presentations because that's part of what brings you value. Practice learning these market trends. Practice the conversations that you're going to have with these clients to be able to show why you are the best. Number three, know your worth. You are a professional. Be the expert your clients need you to be. This is why they pay you the big bucks. And remember, sometimes it can be the big bucks. And you need to make sure that you are providing them value that commands that kind of compensation. So know your worth because you are a professional. All right. And next week, we are talking about peak performance 10 habits of top producers. Next week, I will be in person again in the Oxnard Training Center. This week, I'm in Denver, so I'm in a hotel room. But I will be there with you next week again. So make sure that you're there with me. Follow me on all the socials. Let's have conversations. If you're working on any of this, if you're creating videos, if you're doing any of this, tag me. I want to see it. I would love to just cheer you on in your journey because that is what I do. Follow me on YouTube. Follow me on all the socials. I am here for you.
Don't forget, we're here every Thursday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Join me live by registering at the link in the description below and get your questions answered in real time. I love helping you succeed. Thanks for joining me for another Build Your Business with Brittany. Let's keep building, growing, and closing those deals. I'll see you next Thursday at 2 p.m.